guys, it's 2JZ time. So I swapped the cars. I put the Datsun over there and brought the Foxbody back over here so I could do a little work on it, because next week we have a no time race. So that's on Saturday. I believe that they're gonna get Bradenton all cleaned up. I think they're gonna be doing street heat tonight, but I'm not gonna go to that. But yeah, they're supposed to have the track ready to go next week. So there's a few things I wanted to do to the car, and I figured I would just show you guys what I'm doing, the different upgrades I'm doing and what I'm doing different from last season. So one of the main things I'm doing is changing out the coils. Okay, so if you remember, I was running the R8 coils, which are these right here. They worked really good. I'd never had a problem with them until I got to around 30 pounds of boost, okay? Right around 30 pounds of boost, those coils just aren't up to the task of lighting the ignition, okay? So you get spark blowout, basically was what happens. And what I was doing is basically, if I have a spark plug here. So what I was doing was I just continued to gap the plug down until the spark wouldn't blow out. Well, that works up into a point, okay? So I got all the way down to like 18 thousandths gap on the spark plug. And at that point, it's really just a Band-Aid. You just don't have enough spark energy. So then you start having misfires because the gap is too small and your spark is just really, really small. Even though it's not blowing out, you're still getting misfires, okay? So using marginal coils, you can get away with gapping them down, 18, 19, maybe 20 thou. But when you start getting into higher boost levels, it doesn't matter. It's gonna still blow out the spark, okay? So these coils here these are gonna be, I'm gonna be able to dwell these a lot more than you can dwell these coils, okay? I think the max on these is like 3 to 5 milliseconds max, and then you run the risk of burning up coils. But these, you can dwell them all the way up to 9 milliseconds. I've heard some people dwelling it up to that high. I'm not gonna do that. I'll probably keep it in the 5, 6 range and see how it goes with the boost levels we're running. In order to be competitive in the street style class, I obviously gotta run more than 30 pounds of boost. So yeah, anyway, so I went ahead and already rewired it, because you got to have an extra ground for the IGN coils, and one ground goes to the ECU, and you got 2 grounds that go to the head, and then you have your power and the trigger. Okay, so basically I got everything all set. This is just a plate that actually came with the valve covers. These are SMS CNC valve covers, and what I did, I never actually used this little cover plate here. So I kind of modified it to mount the coils. And you can see I mounted them on little Teflon stands, kind of to isolate them from vibration and heat. Okay, so I didn't want to mount them directly to that metal. I know people do, but I just feel like less vibration and less heat, the better off they are. So the only thing I need to do right now, since it adds all these extra grounds, I'm gonna tidy these up, and I'm gonna actually combine them and make, instead of having all these coming out of the harness, I'm gonna have just two grounds coming out to go to the head. And and then I'll open the gap back up. I'm gonna try to run like a 22 thou gap. So I did actually test these coils, in the ECU with the test function, and got them all to spark. So I know they all spark, and the spark energy looked good. So, I mean, that's not like a scientific, I don't know if it's gonna be better under boost, but that's something we have to test and find out. But anyway, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna wire these, I'm gonna fix the grounds, and we'll get it started up, and I'll show you guys in the ECU, where you mess with the dwell and all that. And I haven't run this car in a while, so I don't know. I did get some fresh fuel. I had to drain all the fuel out of it because I haven't really started the car in almost a year. So, it's been this time last year. So yeah, I'm excited to get this thing back out. It's a lot of fun, and I know it still has a lot of potential. You know, the times I was only running about 50% duty cycle on the injectors. So I have a long way to go. It was just, my limiting factor was the spark. It just kept blowing out, and it was giving me misfires and almost like hitting a rev limiter down track, and it just would not let it accelerate. So hopefully this will help with that. I'm not going to get into like brands of coils. I know these are not like a name brand. They're like a middle of the price range coil, but I don't want to get into which coil is better, the Hall Tech or the Fuel Tech or the whatever tech. I know some of the coil manufacturers use other people's coils and then put their sticker on it. But anyway, this is not a debate about coils. You know, whether these are good or not, I don't know. We're going to find out though. So, all right, let me wire it up and we'll go from there. All right, so it's all wired up. Got all the grounds taken care of. Don't be jealous of my wiring. You can do it too. Just take your time. So anyway, let's go look at the dwell setting that I was telling you guys I was going to show you. It's right here in ECU Masters. You know, you go to your ignition. Go down to coil dwell, and this is it right here. So it gives you like a little graph, and this is basically, you're gonna dwell more as the voltage goes down. Typically, like, I don't know if there's a load on it or something like that and your voltage drops, but I don't ever have that problem. My voltage stays really consistent because I have a like 150 amp alternator. So my voltage stays right around 13.5 the whole time. So this is the area I'm really concerned about. So what we'll do is, hopefully I can do this with one hand. Highlight all this. Okay, and then we'll just hit the plus button until we get it in this area here, the 13.5 volt, 14 volt range, up to around 5 milliseconds. Okay, so we'll go 4.95 to 5.19, right in that area. That's where it's going to dwell right as it's running normally. So obviously if the voltage drops, it's going to dwell more, which is, it's trying to keep the same spark energy, basically is what that is. All right, so let me set the camera up and we'll see if we can get it started. All right, so I got the tripod out here for you guys to see it start up, but I wanted to show you guys this tablet. I've had this for a long time. I did a video on it a while back, but you could pull out, I just use Velcro to hold it onto the dash. And so you can basically pull it out of the car and, you know, watch your parameters while you're in the engine bay. So, you know, I could set this over here somewhere or whatever. I don't know. I could put some Velcro on here and I could Velcro it there and I could watch the parameters while I'm working on the engine or whatever. But this is off of Bluetooth. So it runs off the data logger right there. You see the thing flashing? So that runs this, that connects, you know, through Bluetooth. And that's what runs this. And you can see you got TPS, battery voltage, fuel pressure, IAT, coolant temp, map, all that, RPM. So let me put the camera on the tripod here and then we'll just I'll show you guys how this works. so there you have it. Runs really good. It was hitting on all 6 cylinders, so we've got it all wired up really good and everything's working. So I did try, not on video, but I did try the 2-step, and I'm definitely gonna have to get my nitrous bottle filled, because I use the nitrous to spool the 2-step, okay? So when I opened the bottle, it only went up to about 600. So for the last year, I guess a bunch of nitrous leaked out, I don't know. But anyway, so we got to get that filled. It took forever to get up on the trans brake, but with nitrous, it only takes about 3 seconds. And then what I do is, depending, I can also turn the nitrous back on, like down the track, or after a certain amount of time, or whatever I choose. So yeah, a couple other things we're gonna have to go over since the car has been sitting for so long is I got to check the transmission fluid. So I grabbed the tranny, some tranny fluid, and I got to check that, because when I had it sitting over in this area, I put a cardboard box under it and it was just full of tranny fluid. So I know that this transmission is pretty old, and I know that it's got a lot of converter drain back. So there's probably some O-rings or bushings in there that are getting worn, which is causing the converter to drain back, and then it leaks out of all of the like vent tubes and seals or whatever. I don't know, but it leaks like crazy. So, but it seems like if I use the car often, like if I use the car maybe once a week or start it up once a week, it doesn't do that. It doesn't leak a bunch of fluid. So my assumption is that it's converter drain back. But anyway, I got to check that. What else? I'll check the couplers and all that, but I don't know. All my intercooler piping is pretty solid. Nothing's leaking. There's no oil leaks, no fluid leaks. The radiator still full of water, although it's getting a little dirty, but I mean, not too bad for being, I don't know, this has been in here for almost 2 years. So it's got a little bit of corrosion in there, but it's still pretty clear. So, what else? I'll have to go over some of the, suspension stuff, if those that aren't familiar with the suspension on this car. I'm gonna double check all that stuff too. Man, look at all the cobwebs on this car from sitting for so long. But yeah, this is, I got to check like the anti-roll bar, make sure that's, adjusted right. And just like a nut and bolt check, make sure the suspension moves in its travel and all that. And none of the shocks are blown out or, any of that. So, if you haven't seen any of my other videos about my suspension, this is a really basic setup. I have the Team Z upper control arms with the Team Z, if you can see it or not, the Team Z upper box too. So the upper torque box is the Team Z version where you weld it in, the weld-in torque box. The lowers are stock. Look at all these cobwebs. Oh my goodness, look at this. This just shows how little I've been using this car. So we got to clean the cobwebs and all that off of this too. But anyway, so the front of the lower torque box is stock, and I've just welded it up, to make it stronger. And then I made my own little brackets, okay? These brackets here that come down another, I think it was almost 2 inches from stock. I think stock was here, and this down to here is almost, no, not 2 inches, about 1.5 inches. So my lower control arm in the rear, the rear lower control arm is lowered 1 inch, okay? And that's how I have it set up. My shocks I have set on around halfway. So if it gets a little too violent and wants to wheelie, I just tighten them up, which is going this way, okay? So I tighten them up, and then it'll lessen the shock a little bit, and it won't wheelie as bad. And that's about all I do. I don't really do much. Like I said, I'll check all that, check all the nuts and bolts and all that. But for these no time races, They prepped the track really, really good. I don't know if you saw in a couple of the video, I'm gonna put a couple of videos in the beginning of this video to show you guys the track has a lot of bite, okay? So I end up having, I don't really mess with the front shocks at all. I have it pretty well tied down. All I have is about that much travel. That's it. You can see the chain. So that little slack in the chain is all that it travels. Because the track has such good bite, I don't want too much travel in the front. Otherwise, the car will try to flip over like it has. So, yeah, I'll go over a couple of those things and, you know, sort through it and try to clean it up. I mean, it's so dirty. I mean, look at the dust on this thing. Terrible. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something about, you know, the coils and the limits of these Audi coils. You can get them up to around 29, 30 pounds of boost, but past that, you're gonna run into trouble. So, all right, guys, that's gonna do it. I will check back with you guys next week when we're at the track. Maybe Friday for testing, I'm not sure, but we'll see. Anyway, till then, check y'all later.